You think taxes are your civic duty? He thinks he is contributing to a better society? You think that those 40-50% of your salary that evaporates before it even touches your hand is building roads, schools, and hospitals. You have been indoctrinated. And while you feel virtuous paying your fair share, politicians are using your money to buy votes, bureaucrats are financing your golden pensions, and you are being systematically impoverished under the guise of social responsibility. I'm going to tell you something that will destroy the comfortable narrative you've been taught since you were a child. Taxes are not a voluntary contribution to the common good. Taxes are coercive confiscation of the fruits of your labor under threat of violence. You don't contribute. You're forced. And if you doubt this, try not paying and see what happens. Armed men of the state will come to you. Your property will be confiscated. You will be arrested. This is not cooperation. This is institutionalized extortion. And the nastiest part? You have been conditioned to defend your own tormentors. He has been trained to feel guilt when he questions the morality of having half his production stolen. It was taught that questioning taxes is selfish, when in fact questioning taxes is the only rational response from a person who values the fruits of their own labor. Let me explain the brutal psychology behind this. Human beings have a visceral need to believe that the world is fair, that authorities are benevolent, what systems exist to protect us. This comforting illusion allows us to sleep at night, but this same illusion makes us perfect victims of systematic parasitism. When you work 8 hours in a day and the government takes 4 hours of that work, you are slaving part-time. Don't use euphemisms. Don't call it contribution or social participation. When someone forcibly takes the product of your labor, it has a specific name, partial slavery. And the fact that it is legal does not change the moral nature of the act. You're going to tell me you need government, that needs public services, that someone has to pay for this, and I partially agree. But here's the question you never ask yourself. Why would you accept a system where you have no control over how much you pay or how the money is used? Would you buy a car if the seller told you the price only after you signed the contract? Would you hire a service where the provider unilaterally decides how much to charge and you cannot refuse? Of course, but that's exactly what you accept with taxes. When I was young, I met an entrepreneur who worked 16-hour days building his company. He employed 50 people. It created real wealth, products that improved lives. And at the end of the year, when he did the math, he discovered that 60% of what he earned went to taxes. 60%. He worked more than 7 full months exclusively to feed the government machine. The other 5 months were divided between him, his family, his employees, and reinvestment in the business. This man was not rich because he inherited a fortune. He was rich because he sacrificed, he took risks, he worked when others rested. And how did the system reward you? Treating him like a cash cow, as a resource to be explored. And when he complained, they called him selfish. They said he wasn't paying his fair share, even though he paid more in 1 year than most pay in a lifetime. You are in the same circle. You just don't notice because the numbers are smaller. But the mechanics are identical. You produce value. The state confiscates a significant portion. You get the leftovers. And when you question, they make you feel guilty. The truth is that most taxes don't go to essential things. It goes to feed a bloated bureaucracy that exists primarily to perpetuate its own existence. Go to political programs designed to buy votes, not solve problems. It goes to salaries and pensions of public servants who earn more and work less than equivalents in the private sector. Go to wars you didn't ask for. It goes to subsidies for politically connected companies. It goes to monumental waste that would be criminal if it weren't legal. And here's the brutal math no one wants you to do. If you could invest the money you pay in taxes throughout your working life, you'd retire a millionaire. I'm not exaggerating. Take the percentage you pay in taxes each month. Calculate how much this would be invested at a conservative rate of return over 30, 40 years. The number will make you furious. Because you will realize that the government is not just taking your present money, it's stealing your future. Let's dissect how taxes really work. Not the sanitized version they taught you in school, the raw and brutal reality. You works, creates value, and before you even see that money, it is intercepted. Income tax at source. You don't even have the option to touch the money you earn before it is confiscated. This is no accident. It's deliberate design. Because if you had to physically hand over the money every month, you would feel the pain. You would question. So they automated the theft so that it is painless, invisible, standardized. Then, when you try to use what's left, you're taxed again. Consumption tax. You already paid tax when you won. Now you pay again when you spend. This is not just inefficient. It's philosophically obscene. It's double punishment for the crime of participating in the economy. If you manage to save something and invest it, you pay taxes on the gains. If you buy property, you pay property taxes annually. You never really own anything. You rent everything from the state. It's stop paying taxes on your house and find out who really owns it. If you are successful and accumulate wealth, some places will tax your existing wealth, not your income, not your earnings, your existing wealth. It's as if thieves come back every year to steal again what they stole before. And when you die, if you manage to leave something to your children, the state will take one last bite. Inheritance tax, final punishment for having the audacity to create and preserve wealth. Every penny you earn goes through multiple layers of confiscation. And the sum total of all this? In many places, it's more than 70-80% when you add all the direct and indirect taxes. You work 4/5 of the time for the state, 1/5 for you. And they make you feel lucky to be able to keep that fraction. Now you will tell me that this is necessary. What society needs resources? What public services cost money? And I ask you, who decided that it needed to cost so much? Who decided that bureaucracy needed to be so big? Who decided that government needs to be involved in so many areas of life? The answer is the bureaucrats themselves. The people who benefit from the system are the ones who decide the size of the system. It's like letting thieves write the laws about theft. It's like letting wolves decide how many sheep to sacrifice. Government is not a benevolent entity operated by selfless saints. It is a machine operated by human beings with the same selfish incentives as anyone else. The difference is that they have a legal monopoly on violence. They can force you to pay. They can punish resistance. And they use that power exactly as you would expect anyone with absolute power would, for their own benefit. Politicians want to be reelected. Then they promise benefits using your money. Bureaucrats want security and high salaries, so they expand departments and justify inflated budgets. Interest groups want subsidies. Then they lobby for wealth transfers from you to them. And this entire circus is financed by forced confiscation of your work with the moral blessing of society. You have been taught that to question this is selfish, that wanting to keep the fruits of your labor is greed. But no one ever asked you, why isn't it greed when politicians want your money? Why isn't it selfish when bureaucrats vote raises for themselves? Why isn't it immoral when the state takes half of what you produce? Hypocrisy is obscene. You are selfish for wanting to keep what is yours, but they are noble for wanting to take what is yours. You are greedy for working for your own benefit, but they are virtuous because they live off their work without producing anything. Let me tell you about a concept that revolutionizes how you think about taxes: opportunity cost. Every dollar that goes to taxes is a dollar that doesn't go towards something you value. It's not just about the lost money. It's about everything that money could have done. He could have paid for a better education for his children. I could have invested in a business that creates jobs. You could have built security for your family. It could have been donated to charities you truly believe in, not government programs you never chose. Every penny confiscated represents stolen choices, alternative futures destroyed, murdered opportunities. And here's the ultimate irony. The private sector does everything better than the government. Private education surpasses public. Private healthcare is more efficient than public healthcare. Private charities have much lower overhead than government programs. In literally every area where there is competition between the private sector and government, private wins in quality and efficiency. Why? Because in the private sector, inefficiency is punished by bankruptcy. Poor quality is punished by loss of customers. Waste is punished by the market. But in government, inefficiency is rewarded with larger budgets the following year. Failure to solve problems is used as justification, icative, for more funding. It's an inverted system where incompetence is encouraged. You could take the money you pay in taxes, invest in private education, health, and security solutions, and you would still have leftovers to invest and build wealth. But that choice was stolen from you, because government has decided that you are too incompetent to decide how to spend your own money. You decided that bureaucrats know better than you what's good for you. This is not protection. It's paternalism. It's treating you like a child incapable of making your own decisions. And the ultimate insult is that you pay for the privilege of being treated as incapable. Now let's talk about the most insidious lie of all: progressive taxes. The idea that those who earn more should pay proportionally more. Sounds fair, doesn't it? The rich pay more, the poor pay less, everyone is happy. Except this is fundamentally immoral and economically destructive. First, immorality. Why should someone who produces more be punished for producing more? If you work harder, create more value, take more risks, why should your reward be more aggressive confiscation? It's like punishing the best student in the class with more homework. It is explicit punishment for success. The message is clear: don't be too productive, don't be too successful, because the higher you go, the more you will be looted. It is a systematic disincentive to excellence. Second, economic destruction. Rich people don't hide money in safes. They invest. They create businesses. They employ people. Accumulated capital is capital that can be productively allocated. When you confiscate capital via progressive taxes, you're not just redistributing it, it is destroying wealth creation potential. And here's the dirty secret that economists know but politicians ignore. High taxes on the rich don't generate more revenue. They generate less. Because rich people have options. They can move capital, they can restructure income, they can simply work less. The Laffer curve mathematically demonstrates that there is a point where increasing taxes reduces total revenue. But politicians don't care, because taxes on the rich are not about revenue, they are about politics. They are about appealing to envy. They are about buying mass votes by promising to punish those who succeed. It is cheap populism disguised as social justice. And the final irony? Those who really pay high taxes are not the super rich. They are upper middle class and small business owners, because the truly rich have armies of accountants and lawyers. They have offshore structures. They have access to all the legal tricks that the complex tax code allows. Meanwhile, the doctor, the lawyer, the small business owner who is finally succeeding, these are destroyed. These pay the bill. Modern tax system is class warfare in disguise. Middle class is squeezed to finance lower class and benefit politically connected upper class. And you, in the middle, are the cash cow that no one defends. I saw this happen over and over again. Entrepreneurs who built businesses from scratch, created jobs, paid salaries, improved communities, being demonized as greedy because they don't want to pay 70% in taxes. Meanwhile, politicians who have never created a job in their lives, who live exclusively on money confiscated from others, are treated as heroes of social justice. The moral inversion is complete. Producers are villains, parasites are heroes, and society applauds while it is systematically impoverished. Here's how you should think about taxes, how you think about any other coercive transaction. If someone stops you on the street and demands half your salary under threat of violence, you call it robbery. It doesn't matter if the thief promises to use the money for noble causes. It doesn't matter if he's polite. It doesn't matter if he follows an elaborate ritual. It's still theft. The only difference between a common thief and a tax collector is legality. One has permission from the state, not another. But the fundamental mechanics are identical: forced confiscation under threat of violence. Now, I recognize that some level of government may be necessary: national security, judicial system, enforcement of basic contracts. But these essential functions could be funded with a tiny fraction of what modern governments consume. The rest, it's pure parasitism. And here's the crucial point: even if you believe government should do more, you should recognize that the current method of financing is immoral and inefficient. There should be competition. There should be a choice. You should be able to choose not to pay for services you don't want or use. Imagine a system where you decide how much to pay and for what, where government competes for your dollars by offering quality services, where inefficiency is punished with loss of funding, not rewarded with increased budgets, where bureaucrats serve citizens because citizens pay directly and can arrange financing. Impossible? No, just not profitable for the current political class. So they make sure you never seriously consider the alternative. The reality is that taxes exist at the current level, not because society needs it, but because the government can, because you accept it, because resistance is brutally punished, because alternatives are never discussed in formal education, because you have been indoctrinated since childhood to believe that forced confiscation is a moral duty. But here's the liberating truth: you have no moral obligation to voluntarily finance your own slavery. You have a legal obligation under threat of violence, but moral obligation? Zero. Your moral obligation is to your family, to yourself, to maximize the value you can create in the world. And every penny that goes to taxes beyond what is absolutely necessary is a penny stolen from these real obligations. Now, I'm not telling you to commit tax evasion. This is illegal and stupid. But I'm telling you to do aggressive tax avoidance. Use every legal tool available to minimize how much you pay. Structure your income more efficiently. Use allowable deductions. Invest in vehicles with tax advantages. Hire a competent accountant. Don't pay a penny more than what is legally required. Anyone who tells you that you have a moral obligation to pay more than the legal minimum is either a fool or a thief. Probably both. There's no virtue in voluntarily financing inefficiency and waste. There's no nobility in being a more cooperative cash cow. And when people accuse you of not paying your fair share, ask, how much is fair? 40%? 50? 70? 90? Where's the line? Who decides? And why is their decision morally binding on you? The truth is that fair share is never defined. It's always more. Always. Because people living off other people's money always want more. And people distributing other people's money always promise more. And you, in the middle, are just a resource to be explored. I've seen people destroy their lives trying to be virtuous with taxes, voluntarily paying more, rejecting legitimate deductions out of a misguided sense of duty. And do you know what happened? Government did not use this extra money for anything better, just wasted a little more. And these people became poorer without proportional benefit to society. Your charity must be targeted, controlled, for causes you choose and can check. Not dumped into a black hole of government bureaucracy where it gets lost in 70-80% overhead before reaching any intended beneficiary. Now let's talk about something few consider. The true cost of tax compliance. Not just the money you pay in taxes, but time, energy, and resources are wasted on simply calculating and paying taxes. Modern tax code is thousands of pages long. It changes constantly. It is deliberately complex. Why? Because complexity serves the system. Complexity breeds fear. Fear breeds conformity. Compliance generates revenue. And complexity creates an entire parasitic industry of accountants, lawyers, tax consultants. Smart people spend entire careers not creating value, but navigating absurd labyrinths created by government. This is pure economic waste. It is human talent consumed in completely unproductive activity. Imagine if all these brilliant minds were curing diseases, inventing technologies, building businesses. But no. They are calculating depreciation, structuring holdings, optimizing deductions. Because the tax system is so complex that it requires an army of experts just to not be destroyed by it. And you pay for it. Directly when you hire an accountant, indirectly through higher prices, because every company passes the cost of tax compliance to consumers. It is an invisible tax on a visible tax. And the ultimate cruelty? Complex system benefits rich people who can afford experts. It harms the poor and middle class who cannot afford it. So even within the already immoral system of forced confiscation, there is an additional layer of injustice, where the most vulnerable pay, proportionately more because they cannot navigate complexity. It's perverse design that would be impossible to defend if it weren't normalized by generations of propaganda. Here's how you should really think about taxes. As theft that you are forced to accept, but that you must aggressively minimize within the law, as an operational cost of living in a society that, unfortunately, has not yet evolved into a fairer system. As something to be tolerated at the bare minimum, not celebrated or voluntarily expanded. You owe no loyalty to the tax system. You don't owe gratitude. You must coldly acknowledge that you are stronger than you are at the moment, but that you have a moral obligation to protect your wealth within legal limits. And you have an obligation to teach the next generation to think critically about taxes. Do not accept advertising. Do not swallow the narrative of civic duty without question. Understand the real mechanics of how taxes work and who really benefits. Because here's the secret the political class doesn't want you to know. If a critical mass of people stopped accepting the morality of confiscatory taxes, the system would collapse. It only works because you believe it should work, because you have internalized justifications for your own exploitation. The day people collectively reject the narrative that government knows best how to spend your money, that bureaucrats are more competent than you at allocating resources, that forced confiscation is an expression of social solidarity, that day the system changes. But that day will not come as long as you continue to defend the chains that bind you, as long as you continue to feel guilty about questioning how much is stolen from you, as long as you continue to believe that resistance is selfishness rather than rational self-preservation. Here is my final ultimatum to you. Stop thinking about taxes as a moral duty. Start thinking about how costs should be minimized. Use every legal tool. Don't pay a penny beyond what is obligatory. Don't feel guilty. Don't accept shaming. And when someone asks if you're paying your fair share, respond with another question. Why do you believe politicians and bureaucrats have a moral right to the fruits of my labor? Why do you believe forced confiscation is fair? Why did you internalize propaganda from those who exploit you? You don't need to convince anyone. You just need to protect what's yours within the law. But if you have the courage, plant seeds of doubt. Make people question accepted narrative. Because systemic change begins with a change in consciousness. Taxes are not contributions. They are confiscation. They are not solidarity. They are coercion. They are not civic duty. They are partial servitude. And the sooner you accept this brutal truth, the sooner you can begin to protect yourself effectively. The system relies on your voluntary compliance based on false morality. Remove voluntary compliance. Give only the minimum legally required. And notice how much more wealth you can build, how much more you can do for those you truly love, how much freer you become. This is the correct way to think about taxes, not as a friend, as an enemy that must be managed, minimized, and eventually transcended. And if this offends you, ask yourself, why? Why does the truth offend you? Who taught you to be offended by her? And who benefits from your offense? The answer will set you free, or he will keep you a slave. The choice is yours.